Hey guys, Scary Bad Reviews here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Review Roundup. So the first of our three movies from this past week was a movie that I had to dive deep down into the bowels of Netflix to find, called Bedeviled. And this movie was horrific from top to bottom. I mean, there are movies before that have taken cheap practical effects and bad acting and horrible dialogue and just kind of swirled it together into this amalgamation that you can't take your eyes off of. But this was the exact opposite. I mean, it had cheesy teenage movie acting, horribly written lines, a bad attempt at a monster to centerpiece the entire movie on, this weird convoluted plot that pulled in an app almost to make it feel like Unfriended, or this whole internet horror sensational wave that's going through movies right now. I mean, from top to bottom, it just felt terrible, and it was difficult to watch. I mean, 45 minutes into the movie, I sat there and I said, why am I doing this to myself? I should know what the movie's about, but I can't continue to sit here and just look at this garbage that's up on my screen. And there weren't really any redeeming factors to it. I mean, usually there's one or two scenes in it where it's like, oh, okay, that was kind of cool. Or, hey, that looked really good on screen. And there wasn't any of that. At the beginning, I thought this is a premise that could work. It has worked in the past couple years. And it just fell completely flat. I mean, this monster that they made to go along with the app looked like a cheap Walmart-style mask that you would buy around Halloween time 2 days before you go to a party. The acting was, like I said, horrific. It felt like a bad Disney Channel movie, which there actually are some really good ones, but this was one of the bad ones. And it just felt awful. Like, there's no redeeming qualities to sitting down and watching a minute of this movie. If I were to give it a rating, I'd have to honestly give it a 1. I mean, it's not to the point of where you watch it for 10 minutes and turn it off, but there's no positive reaction that you can give to it while watching it. The second movie I watched this week was a little further up on the list on Netflix, as it's seen some viewership numbers go up, and that is XX. XX is a 4-part anthology movie, and it's centered around female characters, hence the name XX, as in 2 X chromosomes. So all 4 of these pieces didn't feel really complete. I mean, you have this beginning piece that's about, this family who the boy sees something on a train, and it causes him to not be hungry anymore, and the family, that slowly grows throughout the family except for the mom, and the family just falls apart and she becomes completely insane, but there's zero closure in the scene. Like, you don't find out what it was that the boy saw. You don't find out what the mom continues to do. You don't see any resolution in it. It was just this little 15 to 20 minute scene that didn't attach. I mean, anthology scenes don't have to attach to anything else, but I mean, this had no complete story to it. It was just a scene almost from a movie that they pulled out and said, watch this. So the first part was kind of confusing. The second one being the birthday party. This woman is hosting a birthday party for her daughter, and continually is trying to find the father of the daughter, and eventually she finds out that he's in the house, but he had committed suicide the night before, so she's going through trying to hide the body while the birthday party is about to begin. You learn that she has kind of OCD with it. Her daughter has anxiety issues. The whole neighborhood is this uppity, rich society type. And so it has a couple funny moments, a couple little goofs in it, as much as you can for hiding a dead body in a birthday party. And the final scene of them sitting at the table with him in the panda suit, falling onto the cake and everybody finding out and going insane was a nice little closure point. But nothing really to write home about. I mean, it was a funny little tidbit in the middle of this movie. The third segment was actually the most impressive, even though it was the most simple. I mean, it's 4 friends go out into the desert. They find this painting on the rock. This girl gets a scratch on her hand near the painting from falling over, and later that night, she notices that it's starting to spread throughout her body, and she becomes this chupacabra type monster that, you know, starts hunting down her friends. The special effects and the practical effects used in it look pretty good. I mean, it looks somewhat unique, the paint job and the spines that they gave this girl. She did an incredible job of moving in these incredibly unnatural ways, looking broken, looking twisted. The three other actors in it did fine enough. I mean, all they had to do was just kind of scream and run away and not really fight back that much. You can't have too much of a fight to put up with a monster in a 20-minute segment. So it probably was the one that worked the best out of the four of them. It was probably the one that I enjoyed the most out of the four of them. And the last segment in this was titled Her Only Living Son, and it was a really quick, really cheap knockoff almost of Rosemary's Baby-ish. I mean, this woman knows that her son, you know, she was involved in a cult, and she knows that her son is her only attempt at having a child, and he's now 18, but she's starting to remember what happened, and the fact that his father, who's Satan, is going to come and get the boy because he's finally grown and can take the throne of Satan. And it felt kind of rushed in some spots, really spotty acting, no real chemistry between characters in it. I mean, the boy is supposed to be this disgruntled outcast, and you don't really believe it. He kind of has that same whiny attitude that Hayden Christensen had when he played Anakin in the prequels of Star Wars. And so it just feels kind of off. Like, you've seen the story done so many times in so many different ways to success, and then the first time seeing it really kind of stink. Kind of was upsetting, but and the ending doesn't really make sense either. There's no real explanation over what happens. So, and while all four of these stories are going on, in between you have these little intermittent, like 1 to 2 minute clips that form this really weird, you know, avant-garde stop motion clips of this house doll thing that's walking around in this huge chateau, and it's just really unsettling in the worst way. Like, you want things that are unsettling in horror movies, but I mean, this was just like, what am I looking at? Why am I looking at it? And how much longer do I have to look at it for? So overall, I mean, the movie probably gets a solid 4 just based off of the success of that third part. And like I said, the second part, the birthday party, was kind of fun, but the first and the fourth and this over-the-top connecting piece of that avant-garde style just really kind of bummed you out watching it. It didn't really help the movie get anything else from it, so I think a 4 is fair. The third movie was me revisiting one of my personal favorites that I think is an absolute masterpiece from completely through and through, and that is the movie Seven. Every single performance in this movie is meaningful and helps to drive the plot and is, you know, thorough. I mean, Brad Pitt really plays the character of this upstart guy who finally makes it to detective. He's got that city grit in him. He's got that edge to him. He just wants to get things done. Morgan Freeman plays a beautifully crafted, calculated character who's been through it all and doesn't want to be in it anymore, but gets pulled back in the last second. I mean, and then you just add in people after that. You know, you have a great supporting cast of Gwyneth Paltrow, R. Lee Ermey, you know, Kevin Spacey, and so it just kind of layers into this beauty of these performances just slowly bundling together to make this awesome movie. I mean, the plot keeps going. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. The use of the 7 deadly sins in the movie is flawless. I mean, they find ingenuitive ways to incorporate each of them in each of the bodies and each of the crimes that happen. And I don't want to spoil any of them, but the sloth and the lust crime scenes that you see are 2 of the most vivid and haunting images that there has been in cinema history in my mind. I mean, I've seen a bunch of horror movies, a bunch of thriller, I've just watched a ton of movies, and I don't know very many other scenes that stick with you like when you find out what happened in those 2 cases. It's an absolute beautiful thriller that pulls directly from horror imagery in the best possible way. It always leaves you on your toes. You never know what's going to happen next. And there's not very much that you can say about the movie that's negative. I mean, the ending kind of feels like, whoa, we should pump the brakes a little bit. This is going way too quickly and just starts to feel out of control. But that almost plays into how they want the movie to go. I mean, some people would be upset at how quickly it moved during the end of the movie, but that was the whole point. Um, and all in all, I mean, there's not very much wrong to say about the movie. It's just art. I mean, it's a masterpiece in my mind. So I would honestly give it a 9.5. The only reason I can't give it a 10 is that, like I said, that ending feels really, really quick. I know that's what they wanted to do in it, but there will be people that are driven away by how fast it ends. But if you haven't seen this movie, I don't care if you like horror, you like thrillers, you don't, you need to watch it. It's an incredible crime movie that pulls directly from multiple different genres of film to create this top to bottom masterpiece. And so that's it for this week's weekly review roundup. Same as always, guys. If you like what I said, leave a like. If you don't, leave a comment. We can debate it out. Please subscribe to the page. Let other people know that this is going on. Put it out on Twitter, Instagram. Tell your coworkers. Tell the dude that walks your dog, your mailman, anybody you see in the movies. And if you guys have a suggestion to me of movies that you'd like me to watch and speak my mind about, feel free to let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. So, thanks, guys.